Well, this is Dateline News and Conversation. I have to apologize. I attempted to do this particular show last night live, and there were technical problems with the audio and the video. So I'm hoping to do a redo tonight, and it's an important topic in my opinion. The question is to nuke them or wait. The Russian dilemma. Now, there are two very important Russian philosophers, Russian experts on foreign policy, foreign affairs, who both believe that Russia needs to figure out who it is, really, develop a new ideology, develop a new vision of who they are. Now, while I respect these two very important and esteemed individuals, Professor Sergei Karaganov and the very important philosopher Kurganyan. I'm an American, and I've been coming here since 2016 to find out the truth about Russia. I've been living here in the Russian Federation, in Crimea, in Yalta, for 6 years now. I've been attempting to find out the truth about Russia. Who are these Russians? What is this country? What does it stand for? What is its history? And I have to acknowledge at the outset that as an American, I think I have come to begin to understand what is also referred to as the Russian soul. What is it that defines Russia? What are the elements? Where does it come from? And in this particular show, I'm going to share with you the thoughts of Professor Sergei Karaganov and Sergei Kurganyan. And I'm going to argue that Russia already knows who it is. And both of these gentlemen do not believe that Russia has been forceful enough in its responses to the United States and NATO aggression and crossing of many Russian, quote unquote, red lines. So here we go. Sergei Karaganov is the honorary chairman of Russia's Council on Foreign and Defense Policy and an academic supervisor at the School of International Economics and Foreign Affairs Higher School of Economics in Moscow. He was a trusted friend and confidant of Vladimir Putin and a highly respected expert on foreign affairs, but he's become increasingly impatient and critical of Russia's unwillingness to confront the Europeans and the Americans in Ukraine. He believes the principal reason, and I quote, is a lack of determination to employ active nuclear deterrence for resolving what he calls, quote unquote, the European problem, which has once again become an existential threat to our country, end of quote. To prove his argument, he goes back to 2011 and the US NATO aggression in Libya, which he says was weak. He goes on to say, we are now paying for years of appeasement. He says Russia slowed the march toward military adventurism by returning Crimea to Russia in 2014 and intervening in Syria in 2015. He went on to say, had an ultimatum on NATO expansion been issued between 2018 and 2020 and backed by credible nuclear deterrence, the current war might have been avoided, or at least it would have been less bloody. He adds further proof that Russia has failed to respond adequately to a series of openly aggressive actions, such as the seizing of Russian flagged tankers, threats to close the straits, attempts to impose a de facto economic blockade on Russia, attacks on oil terminals, and attacks deep inside Russia. He concludes by saying, our response so far has been intensified strikes on Ukrainian targets, and that this is not a strategic solution, and that the conflict will continue until its true source is addressed: Western Europe's degenerated ruling classes, intellectually, morally, and materially exhausted, who cling to power by fueling war. He goes on to say that our strategy must change fundamentally. The objective is to accelerate the United States' withdrawal from Europe. The method is firm deterrence. The task is to defeat Western Europe's current elites, who see Russophobia as their last political lifeline. The only way to halt escalation is to demonstrate a willingness to strike, initially with non-nuclear weapons, command centers, critical infrastructure, and military bases in European countries central to anti-Russian operations. The targets should include places where the elites gather, including nuclear states. Governments must feel personal risk. He goes on to say, if non-nuclear measures fail and the EU refuses to retreat, Russia must be prepared militarily, politically, psychologically for limited but decisive nuclear strikes using operational strategic weapons. He says, excessive restraint is no longer a responsibility. It is quite the opposite now because it's negligence. Even if Western Europe suffers strategic defeat, it will continue to stagnate, sliding towards inequality, social tension, and new forms of extremism. The UA may fragment. Selective distancing from Europe is inevitable. Security and development can only be built within Greater Eurasia. Persisting in a European fixation is a sign of intellectual exhaustion. Meanwhile, the United States remains a dangerous and destabilizing power. There can be no illusion here either. Multipolarity is coming, but it will be turbulent. Climate change, migration, energy shortages, and economic warfare will intensify conflicts. Old institutions are collapsing. For Russia, opportunity lies in deepening ties with the global majority. Asia today, Africa tomorrow, all the while managing risks with China and India carefully. The war party takes Munich. The war party takes Munich and states that it experienced its deepest crisis with economic issues compounded with a leadership and long-term vision in Brussels. And Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico has warned, as well as Orban in Slovakia. Oh, God. I'm sorry, we're having another technical difficulty here doing these live shows. I'm going to pick up with Robert Fico in Slovenia and Viktor Orban in Slovakia. They are the only two in the EU who are really speaking out against Europe's march to war, and they are the ones who are unwilling to not only ruin their economies, but they're unwilling to continue to help Ukraine. For me, this is a sign that the EU and NATO not only are not in agreement, but are fractured. Prime Minister Robert Fico has warned this about Brussels. Orban, for his part, blasts the EU fantasy about Russia and EU leaders, and they're wrong to believe that they can exhaust Russia and help Ukraine win the conflict. Viktor Orban is one of those people who is opposing everything that the US is doing. And German Chancellor Friedrich Merz' statement at the Munich Security Conference last week, where he suggested that Brussels exacting unprecedented losses and cost on Moscow could weaken it and force it to agree to peace. Who believes that the Russians will run out of steam sooner than Ukraine? It's a fantasy, an illusion, and irresponsible, Orban said in his speech this past Tuesday, criticizing Brussels' continued financial and military aid to Kiev. I too at times have wondered about Russia allowing the US to cross one red line after another. On the other hand, I respect President Putin's patience. Yes, the United States interprets that as weakness, but humanity owes him an enormous gratitude for our survival as a species. The United States and European goal has been to bleed Russia and wear it down in order to inflict a strategic defeat on it. But it is Russia that is using the war of attrition to wear down, weaken, and cause the collapse of both. Sun Tzu, in The Art of War, emphasizes winning through strategy, deception, and minimizing conflict. He believes in supreme intelligence, in winning without fighting, and adapting to circumstances. President Putin is practicing the art of war, minimizing conflict, and winning without fighting, therefore attacking European countries of the United States bases and the United States mainland. Putin and Xi and Minister Modi in India and European leaders like Fico in Slovenia and Orban in Slovakia are all acutely aware of the rapid decline of the US dollar, along with the collapse of the European economies, the fracture of the EU itself, and along with it, the end of NATO. The entire world is witnessing the decay and rot that is causing the collapse of the USA, colonialism, and a unipolar world. Trump is extending the US way beyond its ability to sustain all of the aggression, while the US national debt is at $38 trillion. Household debt is $18 trillion. And this is including student debt, plus the rising inflation, the cost of everything from food, cars, fuel, and just about everything that this giant consumer society relies on. The rest of the world can see how divided, corrupt, and decadent the USA has become. So why escalate? Why threaten nuclear war? In this war of attrition, Russia is winning. Europe and the USA are losing by every measure. The Russian people are still behind their president. They have been tested by war like no other country on earth. They know who they are and what they are made of. Political scientist, philosopher, and the leader of the Essence of Time movement, Sergei Kurganyan, along with Sergei Karaganov, believe that Russia must form a new identity. Well, I disagree. From what I can tell, the Russian soul is Russia's identity. It's over 1,000 years old, of resisting foreign invasions. It traces this identity through the imperial period, through the revolution and communism, through the Crimean War, World War I and World War II, and the collapse of the Soviet Union. While all religions exist here side by side and are respected, it is the Orthodox Christian Church that has held this country together. These 187 different ethnic groups all speak Russian and know who they are, while not losing their ancient cultural heritages and languages. The past 26 years have seen Russia rise from the ashes like the phoenix to again becoming a world power and an unrivaled culture. You can't tell me this people don't know who they are and what they are fighting for. Once again, they are being called to defend the motherland. And again, victory will be theirs. This commentary was based on my own personal journey and research to discover who are these Russians. I've been trying to find the truth. I've been trying to understand the people and the culture and their heritage. And when I hear people like Kurgan and Karamazov claim that Russia does not know who it is and must form a new identity, I couldn't disagree more. I believe that Russia is just entering what I will call a new golden age. It is Russia's destiny to resist U.S. imperialism, to resist U.S. unipolar view to dominate the world, to resist neoliberal ideas and philosophy that have come from the United States, have infiltrated most of Europe. The Russian Federation is fighting this decadence. The Russian Federation is directly fighting the United States of America for its very survival. This is an epic battle. It's a spiritual battle. It's a battle against good and evil. Good, represented by the Russian Federation and the Russian people, rejecting the evil that is coming from the United States and the West. It is my belief that Russia, China, India, the BRICS, and the Global South, who represent the vast majority of the people and countries on this planet, are resisting the epic attempt, the epic battle of the United States to once again colonialize and rule the planet. I believe that Russia and China and Iran and India will prevail. Why? Because they know who they are and they understand what's at stake. This has been my commentary on today, which is